If you like the channel and want to see more videos like this, check out the links in the description below. It is finally here. After nearly 10 years, Ishin is finally playable in English for the first time. I cannot tell you how happy I am that this is finally a thing after begging Sega to localize it in every survey and in any Yakuza related video on this channel. Sega was nice enough to give me a code for this game, which I want to mention for full transparency. I do not think that this affected my judgment with the game because I still have my fair share of complaints with it. I hope that won't burn my bridge with them, but if that does, then I'm surprised it wasn't all the massive shit I talked about Kiwami 2 in my Yakuza 2 retrospective, or the fact that this video is extremely late. This will only be a review of Like a Dragon Ishin, or Ishin Kiwami as I will be calling it for the rest of this video. I have not played the original version, so this won't be a here is what has changed type video, and any of my complaints may be because it was better done in the original version, and if you want a video like that, go watch videos like this, which I'll link in the description below. I just want to get it out of the way right up front so it doesn't become a huge part of the video. I do not like the recasting of characters. It looks out of place most of the time, especially with Yamazaki. I will not stand for the Baba erasure present in this game. It is weird that they apparently did not add Mac to the remake because they felt it was too fan-servicey, yet nearly every recasted character was from one of the two widely successful and popular games with general audiences, Yakuza 0 and Yakuza 7. I would have been fine and liked it if they were included as new characters for side content instead of replacing characters with established appearances. To start off, I want to praise the settings put into this game that I have been saying were a necessity since the switch to the Dragon Engine. I had actually considered making it a video of its own after playing Lost Judgment because I thought it was something that needed to be changed and deserved its own video as a sole talking point. We finally have subtitle settings with increasing font sizes, adding backgrounds, the setting I have always dreamed of for a localized Japanese game, that being a glossary for words currently in a sentence to further add context, as not everything could be perfectly translated one-to-one, or leaving things unlocalized or just in Romanji, leading to a more authentic experience. It is the thing that I wished games like Persona 5 had, and if more games adopted this, it would only make them better. I know it's easy to say just implement it, but any game would be vastly improved by having this. It does not even have to be a Japanese game. It could be anything from anywhere in any language. Imagine how much enrichment could be added to the culture or the historical depictions of any story based on any given location being brought to viewers from outside of that region or background. In the context of this game, it gives you a much needed history lesson on the caste system of pre-Meiji Restoration Japan that otherwise without, you'd either have to already know, look it up yourself, or infer from the context clues without fully being able to grasp its truer meaning. Going into this game, I did not know anything about late Edo period Japan's government or caste system, so having definition breakdowns really helped. Sadly, the one text edition from Lost Judgment that did not make it into this game is the conversation log, and while it is missed, it is not the end of the world, and the other settings more than make up for it. The shift from the original engine, which I don't believe has a publicly given name, to Unreal Engine 4 is a pretty mixed bag. The reason given for the switch was lighting purposes, as they acknowledged that one of the Dragon Engine's weaknesses is daytime lighting, which if you watched my Yakuza 2 retrospective, I brought it up there as being a thing. So it is cool to see the studio being open and aware about their own shortcomings and fan feedback. I will miss the old look because I am really fond of the series' visuals during the span of of 5, Ishin, 0, and Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise. In my mind's eye, this is what the series looks like when I think back to it in my head. The original Ishin had its own set of spots I think don't look very good, especially with the extremely green color grading in some places, which were improved for the remake, but the remake also has its own fair share of scenes that look worse than they do in the original. It's weird that given the reason for the engine switch, daytime scenes, especially in non-pre-rendered cutscenes, look bad in similar ways to the Dragon engine, which the original didn't. The original looked fine during the day, it looked especially good during the sunset, but there are plenty of spots in the remake where it has the same weirdly washed out color and skin with odd looking hair that the Dragon engine games suffered from. I don't know how to describe it other than that characters look like they just woke up sickly and dehydrated without any makeup on. The remake also brings a lot of issues with pop-in, as is a custom with Unreal Engine games, ranging from the standard texture pop-in having huge chunks of the scene starting out blurry, to entire characters instant transmissioning into frame. This is also something that I have to acknowledge that as a video editor, it is something that my eyes are extremely sensitive to, from years of training to prevent black frames or phantom frames in videos, so I notice it even if it's only for single-digit frames in a cutscene, which the average person isn't going to notice. There are also a lot of scenes that just had performance issues with the frame rate dipping and stuttering, or had cloth physics freaking out, even if the characters were standing still. All of this leads me to feeling that the engine change wasn't worth it, and I would have rather had a remaster like 3 through 5 got. With what I've said so far, and with what I am about to say, you might think that I did not like this game, but I want to make it clear now that I still overall enjoyed my time, glad I finally got the chance to play it, and still recommend you do it too. But that being said, after nearly a decade of hyping this game up and wanting to play it in a language I can fully understand, I don't think it could have ever lived up to the hype and expectations. It's probably the poster child game of this series that you would describe as good, but with some really glaring issues. Stuff that probably should have been changed with the fact that this is a remake instead of a remaster. Like, if you're going to change things, at least change some of the stuff in this game that isn't very fun. I'm open to change when it is actually good, and this game really could have used some reduction to the grinding. This is the game that introduced the upgrade wheel system that Yakuza 0, Kiwami 1, and Lost Paradise also used, and while it has some aspects that I really liked and think are neat, as a whole I do not think that this is a very good progression system. I've said it before and I will say it again, Yakuza 4 has the best progression system in the series, and they have only gotten progressively worse and worse since then, with the biggest nosedive in quality being Yakuza 6, only getting marginally better with the Judgment games because they weren't that orb shit that 6 and Kiwami 2 had. In this game, each time you level up, you will get a training orb. This can be slot into any of the 4 stances in this game. Then when you level up any of the 4 stances from using them in combat, you can then use that orb for the corresponding upgrade wheel. These class orbs can be used to slot in over any of the training orbs as a permanent upgrade, allowing you to move that training orb to a later slot in this wheel or to any of the other 3. I think that this is a pretty cool idea, and it does feel very nice to slot these in and continue to make progress, but when taking a step back, you realize how much of this is a band-aid solution for this sheer amount of bloat these wheels have. Of the 4 upgrade wheels, only the highlighted orbs on screen now are something that you would not quantify as a mere stat boost of any kind, and with how the trooper cards are incorporated in this game, your health bar is sized with their accommodations in mind, so when you get a health upgrade from any of the 4 wheels, the amount you get is so small it feels like you are being nickel and dimed upgrade materials for inconsequential increases. This isn't something that I would have expected them to change and improve for the remake. Reworking the entire game's upgrade and progression system would have been so much work, but one thing that I do feel should have been changed is the need to buy multiple sprint upgrades instead of having unlimited sprint from the get-go like you do in recent RGG releases. This is one of the major factors contributing to this game's intense feel of grind. Basically anything you want to do or get has multiple levels of upgrades to buy via virtue, a currency gotten by praying at Jizo statues, completing sub-stories, or just helping out around town. Then there are the schools of training for each stance, which unlock special slots in the upgrade wheel, but they don't let you just jump right to them even if they are located in their own segmented off area of the wheel, meaning that you can unlock the ability to get the cool moves, but then you have 20 other upgrades upgrades, first you must get on the wheel before you even get to the area to unlock these upgrades. You should have just been able to slot them in as soon as you got the chance to learn them from doing the lessons at the school, as they are already uniquely locked off via these chains in the menu. Then there is all the material hunting and grinding so you can make better swords and guns at the blacksmith. A lot of the materials are collectibles from fights, purchasing them from stores, or given by sub-stories, but there are also those you need to get from doing the trooper mission dungeons. The more the fancy and strong the sword you want to get is, the more rare upgrade materials you'll need for it, plus the previous swords in its evolutionary tree. So you could run into a situation where you actually have the rare materials to make one of the endgame swords, but you don't have half the shit you need for all of the swords that came before it. Thankfully, the game gives you stronger and stronger swords for beating a lot of the story bosses, so it isn't something completely forced upon you unless you're going for the 100% completion, which I highly recommend against doing unless you want to utterly hate this game by the end. This is all the stuff that I felt could have been toned down to some extent for the remake to make it feel less of a grind, but for some reason this wasn't touched at all, at least from what I've seen and heard. This then makes me question again the purpose of a remake if you aren't going to change any of the shit people did not like about this game, which again reinforces my feeling that they probably wasted more time, money, and resources doing a remake than a remaster. The last addition to the remake worth mentioning is the trooper card abilities. Leading up to the release, it was the thing I was the most against for this remake and had me worried how it would affect the gameplay. Thankfully, you can unequip them and completely ignore this system, which is very much appreciated. I cannot definitively say if this gives you the same experience as the combat of the original game, since I have not played it yet, but the combat and its encounters feel balanced with the trooper cards in mind. Equipping these cards gives you huge boosts to HP, damage, and gives you tons of combat buffs and moves similar to the consumables from Lost Judgment. I played about 90% of this game without using them at all, but by the end I thought I should use them for a little bit just to see how they change the gameplay, and a lot of the magic attacks just instantly end basic enemy encounters with huge AoE attacks. Your health bar feels so small without them that I also just wanted to experience the game for a short period of time where it did not feel like I was in constant threat of dying in 2 hits from a boss without them. Again, I'm thankful they gave me the option to ignore them and also turn off the damage numbers, which I do not like present in any of my third-person action games. I'd be way more bitter about this system if I was begrudgingly forced to interact with it the entire game, and I think there is a high likelihood that after my retrospective on Ishin in 2067, where I play both versions of the game, I expect I will dislike it even more after analyzing it down to its very core, leaving no meat on the bones by doing everything it has to offer. Now, this next thing isn't the fault of the game, but I do feel like the combat of Ishin was widely overhyped for nearly a decade before its localization. I am probably also responsible for this as well for games like the original Yakuza 2 and Yakuza 5 with how much I praise them, but after hearing about how good and fun the combat of this game is for years while not being able to play it myself, it left me kind of disappointed and underwhelmed once finally getting my hands on it. This could also be because of the finer details of the combat system changed in the remake, which I don't know about if they are present, but as is, of the 4 stances / styles in this game, I only found one of them to be enjoyable, that being Wild Dancer, and to Wild Dancer's credit, it is definitely up there as one of the best move lists in the series and feels great to use. Compared to Yakuza 0 and Kiwami 1, which I'm well aware came out after Ishin, unlike how many people view this series with acting and treating 0 like it's the first game instead of the 6th, or the 11th if you're counting Dead Souls, both the PSP games Ishin and Kenzan. Without the presence of the animation cancelling upgrade, the 4 stances feel practically isolated from each other and have 0 synergy without breaking the flow of combat and grinding your combos to a complete halt. That wouldn't be an issue if said upgrade wasn't at the end of the Brawler skill tree, the worst stance in this game, so players could easily go their entire playthrough without even knowing it was a thing in the game and instead thought that it was introduced in 0 or Kiwami 1, so they had to come back and add this to their already really late review. Gee, I wonder what kind of idiot would let that happen. As is, Swordsman feels incredibly stiff even though I like its charge attacks. Gunman is for the insane people who should be locked in a cage who enjoy DMC2's gameplay. From what I have heard, this is statistically the best style in the game, and I could easily see that from the little amount of sitting on one end of the room shooting a guy endlessly I did during my playthrough. but I do not find this fun and engaging gameplay, so I had to force myself to use it more than I would have otherwise, as to sate my curiosity for the possibility that there was anything else about gunmen that I could have been missing. Brawler is my least favorite style in this game. It does such little damage it feels like I'm punching brick walls with pillows for fists. It would have been even more demoralizing if I had the damage numbers on to see the single digits fly out of enemies with each strike as their health bars barely inch closer to death. I gave up on sticking with this stance to see if the damage gets marginally better with upgrades later in the tree. If that is the case, the starting point is so low and miserable that I can't see most people struggling through it to get the style to an enjoyable state. I'm pretty sure they even buffed it in a post-launch update, and it still doesn't feel very good. This was the first game with multiple styles for a single character, so it is understandable that they hadn't fully gotten the system down yet, and only makes the improvements seen in Yakuza 0 and Kiwami 1, for as much shit as I gave that game in my retrospective, all the more impressive. The one non-combat thing that got under my skin my entire playthrough was how sub-stories were handled in this game. At times, the game wisely locks them off from being done or initiated, but other times it just gets in your way when trying to progress the main story and sucks you into them like a black hole, while also not having a marker on the map before you initiate them, so there is plenty of situations where you're trying to go to a mission and accidentally trigger them because you did not see it coming. Like this one situation where I had to be a bodyguard for a princess in a cart, which bugged out since the cart carrier started clipping into a wall and could not round a corner, meaning that I had to reload my previous save, and that street was just completely blocked off because I did not want to trigger that sub-story again, at least if I did not want to run into the same cutscene again and have to turn them down. I'm an insane person, so I always feel bad turning down the sub-stories to come back to do them later, so I always felt like I had to accept them because I'm extremely OCD. I've seen people complain about the pacing issues with the story of this game, and unless this is what they're talking about, I don't really agree otherwise. To give an example of how bad it can be, at one point in my playthrough I was finally going to meet up with someone to give me an answer to the secrets that I've been hunting for so long. Only then, while crossing the bridge to get to the location, I was sucked into doing a mail delivery sub-story where I had to run around town on a timer without the ability to turn it down. This killed all the momentum and build-up that I could have had to finally find out the truth that I had been hunting for 20 hours. The quality of the sub-stories varies pretty drastically. There are some really good ones in this game, but then it feels like half of the other ones are the crappy befriend someone by bringing them a specific item to fill a friendship meter garbage that the series was obsessed with for a while. There are some really fun minigames like slicing the cannonballs in half that I got super addicted to, so despite some of the sub-story shortcomings, there is still a wealth of fun side content. Without getting into spoilers of the main story, I found the mystery really enjoyable. Seeing a political thriller take place in such an interesting point in history had me really invested, though the removal of the post-credit scene was really odd. I don't know or understand why they did that. Some of the smaller moments present in the back half of this game have become some of my favorite in the entire series. Seeing Ryuji Goda and Akiyama hang out and talk shit to each other was such a blast. It's great to see characters who have since long been dead interact with Kiryu and other characters they never got the chance to, even if they technically aren't their original characters. All the performances were great as always. There are some extremely hype set pieces and boss fights. I thought I was spoiled on who the actual final boss was for the entire playthrough, but it turned out that I heard the wrong information, and it was an incredibly cool fight. Definitely up there as one of the better ones in the series. For as much of this game that can be jank or grindy, I still think it's something worth playing. I still stand by my belief that the Yakuza or Like a Dragon franchise, as it's now officially titled in the West, does not have a truly bad entry, and this is one you definitely should not miss out on. More time passing in my reevaluation of the franchise since starting my retrospective series, I have come to appreciate the spin-offs of the RGG franchises even more. They have become the games that I'm the most excited for. I really want to see them do experimental games like Dead Souls or Binary Domain again. I still think that they are the perfect candidates to make a good Kamen Rider game that isn't shovelware garbage. I'm excited to see what RGG does with The Man Who Erased His Name later this year. If you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thanks for watching as always. If you really like the channel, then please consider passing the video around, leaving a like and a comment, and maybe consider becoming a patron on Patreon. All patrons get access to videos a day early, along with a $7 tier that shows rough cuts of upcoming videos, like my currently in the work anime boxing video. I'm now going to shout out all of my $5 and up patrons: Applejuice426, Burley, BBF in Bloxburg, Bully, Densha, Jordan Bennett, Kohai Carmen, Cosmonaut Cola, Medi Not the Bad Guy, Nemphy, Quanner, Quartz, Revin, Rovit, Samuel Egan, Scary Dinosaur, Sir Newt Newt, Skullman, Walkman, Ben Johnson, Buckets, Chichometrius, Cursed Void, David Roberts, Ekfrazo, Elliot Morton, Filthy Fingers 69, Fish Kami, Hardleg Joe, Kevin Velasquez, Lazy Titan, Leon, Lotto, Lucy the Fox, Mitchell, Nicholas Pedinato, Sean the Berserker Fighter, Simply Aiden, Slemph Tingle, Starcasters, The Worstest Guy, and William Moore. Thanks so much, guys. As for what's coming out next, I still have a lot of videos in the works, including things like the Drakengard retrospective, the Armored Core series review, the Onimusha series review, which you can go view the review for the first game on Patreon if you're a $7 tier or up. There's also still a lot of other smaller projects still in the works, so to keep up to date, follow me on Twitter. If you're a card game player of any kind, I have a TCG Player affiliate link in the description below. Any purchases you make will give me a small kickback. I also have a NordVPN affiliate link, which using my promo code in the description below will also help support the channel and give you a discount on a 2-year plan. That's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.